It's the 2022 release of their 172 Dornier, hitting the shops now. Welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and welcome to a first impressions video of this brand new release of their 172 Dornier from Airfix. Now, as I record this, the 5th of August 2022, this is just hitting the shops now, but it is not a 2022 tool. It's a 2022 release with new decals. If we look on the box here, near where the Hornby logo is, it tells us that the model design and tooling is 2014. And actually, this is the third release the Airfix have done of this particular tooled kit. So what we've got here is a skill level 3 build. So it's going to be quite complex. It's got 170 parts, so the part count is relatively high for the scale. And we've got 2 paint schemes. Now, unusually, we don't have the paint schemes on the front of the box art, which is pretty much always the case. So it's a slight difference in the box for some reason. Whether that's a future change, I don't know. But the box is absolutely lovely. We've got an engine on fire, we've got a hurricane there, and we've got a member of the crew bailing out. And in this corner here, it has a little bit of history. On the box. It tells us that on the 18th of August 1940, the hardest day, 9 Dornier Do17z conducted a low-level raid on RAF Kenley, causing significant damage to the hangars and surrounding buildings. The lead aircraft, F1DT, this one depicted in the box art, was damaged by the parachute and cable defense system and subsequently brought down by hurricanes of 111 Squadron. So that's what's depicted in the box. Lovely bit of artwork. Something to put on the wall when you finish with the contents, I reckon. So as we look around the box, we've got our usual cautions. We have our usual contact information, and it tells us that this is made in India, that it's cartographed decals, which is always the case these days. As we go to the sides, we've got the same information as we have on the box cover. And then as we flip round, we have our 2 flying hours, which I will remove in a minute. I've literally just had this delivered in the last couple of hours, and as soon as I've finished work, I've jumped on it, so I've not even had a chance to cut them off. So skill level 3, which we've already said. We've got our paint list for our 2 different paint schemes, A and B, and the pilot. I think there's more than one pilot in this kit, if I remember. I think you've got 4, actually. And then we've got Dornier Do17z 76 from Northern France, 1940. And then we've got one from Greece, May 1941. Quite like the Greek colour scheme with the yellow on, but we'll have a better look when we see the paint shout-outs. We've got a little bit of history there, which is different to what's on the box art. Okay, this is still taped down, so let's crack it open. Okay, so our sprue frames pretty much fill the box, so there is not much in the way of travel in there. It's Airfix's more normal way of packaging, which is a single bag with a separate bag for clear parts inside. And we've got a folded instruction sheet, got our decals, stencils there. So let's take all that out. Let's have a look at the instructions. Okay, so we have our typical A4 stapled, colour printed instruction manual. I like the Airfix instruction manuals because they're both in colour, but they're also matte, which makes it easy on the eye. We have the a little bit of history and the aircraft specifications in several different languages, and then surfaces to painted should be clean before removing from the sprue, as always. And then as we turn over to the next page, we've got more languages for our assembly instructions, which are just basically things to watch out for. And then we have our assembly icons, and that one looks a little bit different. Otherwise, they're all fairly familiar. Okay, so on page 3, we start our construction. And as is usually the way with an aircraft, we are starting with the cockpit area. And already we can see why they've decided this is a skill level 3. I mean, if you're used to building old Airfix kits from the 80s and the 70s, that would have been one item that went onto one flat item, and that was it. And we've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4 parts to make that up, and doesn't it look quite busy as well? So we're starting with the seats. Looks like we've got options right from the start. Doesn't really make it clear why you'd be selecting one over the other. Is it just personal taste? It doesn't reference a paint scheme. So if anyone knows what the difference is in the seats and which one you should use for this particular aircraft, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know. Step 5, we've got some detail painting going on ahead of some more interior assembly, putting it together in step 6, and then that is going into the first half of our fuselage in step 7. We can see paint instructions all over. So we've got 85 is satin black, I think, and then 240, which I think is a grey off the top of my head. I might be wrong. And then I think German aircraft were grey on the inside, weren't they? Then we've got some more parts going in, and then we are building up the pilot if you want to install him. Well, we've got no seat harnesses, so unless you're going to scratch make some out of some masking tape, you're probably going to want to put the pilot in, but of course it's personal taste. Building up the tail wheel, and that's an option depending on whether you're having the landing gear up or down. So we're already making a couple of decisions within the first 10 steps, but not clear to me why. Step 11 sees us building up the other side of the fuselage on the inside, and then we have more seats and more pilots. That takes us up to 3 in total. And again, everything seems to be mainly the 240 colour. And then we're putting our 2 fuselage halves together. But there's a huge amount of fuselage missing here, so there's obviously quite a bit more to do. Telling us to cut out that little nub there. Again, as an option if the landing gear is going up, so careful not to remove that if you're going to put the landing gear in. Then we're building up another seat, and we've got another pilot, well, crew member I should say, rather than pilot. So that is 4 figures so far. I think that's what you get. I think it's 4 figures, I seem to recall. So we've got a glass piece going in there. Probably those 3 bits and that bit in the middle is what we actually need to be transparent. So the rest of it's for painting. I like that. That means you can mask it effectively. It just makes the whole painting process a bit easier. You're not trying to fit a glass part in and have to fill it and stuff. You're well away from anything that's transparent, so that's nice. Step 17, we've got a decal to put all our dials on. That looks flat to me. We'll have to have a look and see if there's textures on it. Some people prefer to paint them. Then we're putting in quite a large single piece there. That again looks quite detailed. Oh, step 6, that's the part we've built up, I beg your pardon. That's the part we've built up. So doesn't it look busy though in that cockpit area? I really like that. Then we've got a brace going in step 19, and the wing braces going in, which are quite short actually. Obviously better than using the biscuit fitting that you traditionally used to get, but still look a little bit short, don't they? We've got another transparent part going in, lots of glass in this aircraft. We flip over, step 22, we've got a lower wing section, and then we're building up some parts. What's that? Yeah, okay, so that's under carriage parts, so that must be the upper wing. Yeah, we've flipped that upside down, so yeah, upper wing. We've got a little bit of work to do ready for the engine nacelles maybe. Right, step 22, and we're putting on the wing. I think that's the upper surface of the wing. Yeah, I think the engine nacelles must be slung underneath, and we've switched that on. So the lower half of the wing is going in. There's no glass parts going in, so there's no lighting or anything in the wings going in. And they appear to be the traditional pin locations, so some significant test fitting before you fit that. I often find that these sort of location points create your gaps and hold things apart and misalign stuff, so sometimes it's easier just to remove them. So a little bit of careful fitting probably, and you're going to have a join at the wing root, so all stuff to keep your eye on and fit carefully. 26 and 27, we're building up the engine nacelles, so that will be nice and easy to paint. You can install that, paint it up, and put the cowling round, having painted that inside. Still all 240, all this grey colour. I'm going to have to check that I've got some of that in stock, because there's lots of it being used. Okay, and then in 32 we're starting to build up the engines. So we've got a number of parts going on, which is great. That means we've got crisp moulded detail going in, and it's not all sort of been lost in translation of trying to mould one single part. And we're making 2 of those. Step 33, and we're fitting those engine cowling fronts there. Interesting that there's some nice detail there that will only really be seen through that. I'm not sure how visible it's going to be, but the detail's there, so that's lovely. Building up the engines themselves, that's 3 parts. There's lots of detail on there. They're showing you that you're painting this in 3 different colours. So you've got 56, which I think is gunmetal, 85, is that satin or gloss black. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research just to understand any differences in colours with those rods and the pipes. You might want to pick them out slightly differently just to add a little bit of realism to the model. One of the things that Airfix do, although they tell you what the paint is as you go, they sometimes dumb it down a little bit and don't pick out some of the details. So always watch for that. We're then installing the engines. Don't they look beautiful, nice and busy? We've got a little bit of forward on pictures there, so you can get your geometry correct. So I love that. And then we're building up the engine cowls, 3 parts. So front ring, 2 side pieces, and then they're going in around our exhaust there. Step 40, we're putting the last piece of the cowling to fit around the exhaust, so that's nice. Hopefully that all fits nice and crisply. Masking that is going to be interesting, so probably a little bit of thought needed to go into how you're going to paint that, if indeed you're going to paint that attached. You might want to paint that separately and paint the body before you've attached the engine, maybe, if that's possible. A little bit of thought needed on that, I think, just because of the way the exhaust will poke through. Then we've got our tailplane being built up in 1 piece. one piece with two tops, so that should be nice and straight. You're not going to have anything dropping and sagging on one side. We seem to have an option, which is the angle that you want them. Again, doesn't tell you why you'd be taking that option. Then we're adding more into the tail section. Right, okay, yeah, the flaps there at the back, and again, an option for angling them. Okay, again, doesn't really tell you, but I suppose if you're putting it in flight, flaps up, flaps down if it's parked, I'm not sure. You need to do your research and understand how you want to display it, I guess. Some additional parts going on, so they should be nicely moulded and crisp. And then we've got the tail ends. So that's quite a complex little build-up of parts, isn't it? What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to build up the tail. Yeah, interesting. Should look really nice though. Okay, step 47, and we're building up flaps here on the wings. Some modifications depending on whether you're having them open or closed. So I guess that will correlate to what you've done with the tail. And then, yeah, and it's giving you the geometry there. If you put them in, you've got 20 degrees play either way, depending on what you want to do. It might be nice to get this on a stand, although I didn't see any obvious instructions to allow you to mount it on a stand. I might have to improvise. Okay, gear up. We're putting that single piece in which closes off the engine nacelles. Gear down, and we've got a single landing gear part to go in. It's telling us that we're painting this in 240 and 85. I imagine that's aluminium, the rest of it. So that's them being installed. And then we've got the supports for it going in afterwards. So that gives us something that looks a bit more busy. So I like that. Over the page, step 56, got our mudguard going in, and then we've got wheels, which are 2 halves, hubs already in place, but we do have weighted flats on the tyres. Yeah, looks like we've got some tread on them as well. So they're going in place. Then we've got the gear doors being added at the same time, and then because we're doing the gear down version, we're putting in that tail wheel. So step 61 will only apply, doesn't say that, but only apply if you're gear down, because we've already installed it earlier on for gear up. Bombay door, we've got an option on so Bombay door closed, and we can install a stand, and again they're peddling the one that they don't sell. And then 63, 64, 65, 66, these are all options, different types of ordnance. Not quite sure what that is. We can see it going in there. So step 67 is definitely is 4 different options effectively, depending on what ordnance you want to put in there. And I guess that rules out putting your stand on. It seems that the Germans around about this time, 40-41, were dropping picnic hampers on people. So I wonder what was in there. Again, if you want to educate me, put it in the comments. But step 68, the open Bombay doors are being put in place, and then we're moving to the clear parts. We've got what looks like some fairly basic machine guns being mounted in. You've got basically the barrel and the ammunition. So that's been mounted into the glass part. More gun being mounted, more glazing, and then we're doing the propellers. Quite a traditional way of building them, with the propeller mounted on a pin that spins and a separate spinner, but makes things nice and easy for painting. Then step 74, we're adding the 2 glass parts more guns, some more glazing along the back there, radio loops and so on, installing the propellers. And then we appear to have another option. Again, it's not telling me why I'd want to use that option, but we've got some door, is that access, crew access hatch, we can have open or closed, but it's not clear to me exactly why I'd be taking that option, or indeed what it is. Can't assume that everyone's an aircraft enthusiast, because I'm not really. So we've got another option at the end, and that completes our build. 76 steps. So that's quite a lot of steps for a 172 scale aircraft. Let's have a look at our paint schemes. Okay, scheme A, I'm going to let you read it, then I don't have to try and pronounce it. See what I did there? Clever, you see. What I can say is it came from North France and was shot down near Biggin Hill in Kent on the 18th of August 1940 after a raid on RAF Kenley, which is what the box art was on the front cover. So we've got our list of paints there. Now, this is interesting. If you go on the Airfix website, the paints they are shouting out are slightly different. If you're going to order this from Airfix, there's always an option to select all and buy the paints that are required for the paint scheme that you're deciding to paint. So if you can make that decision when you buy the kit, you can click one button which selects all of those paints, puts them in your basket. Be really careful. I don't know what's happened, but Airfix have dropped a bit of a clanger, and these paints are incorrect on their website. So if you go on their website and select this paint scheme, you're going to get khaki instead of trainer yellow. You are going to get black. You're going to get aluminium instead of aircraft blue. You are going to get the other black. You're going to get desert yellow instead of your RLM70. And you're going to get flesh instead of RLM71. So be careful. Until they've rectified that, you're going to get the wrong paints if you order it. So yeah, absolutely needs sorting out. But just be mindful of it. I have contacted customer service and made them aware, but until they sort it out, just be careful of it. Okay, our paint scheme is also calling out our main decals. So we've got our national markings and aircraft identification numbers. We've got a little decal there for a yellow strip, and then we've got some more decals going on there. Although those aren't called out. They look like the decals to me, but maybe they want you to paint those in. We'll have a look on the decal sheet in a minute and see if we've got enough decals to cover that. So we've got 1, 2, 3 52s for the band that goes around there, and then 51 is the box. Okay, so anything else must be for the wings. Okay, I assume that there was swastikas on the tail that Airfix are neglecting to put on to allow sales in some markets. We've got decals for the propellers, decals for the ordnance. So that all looks okay, fairly basic, but I know we've got separate stencil sheets, so we're going to fluff it up a little bit when we do that. And then we've got this sort of coat of arms on the front there. Standard splinter camouflage, standard paint scheme, but looks quite nice. Then our other paint scheme is the Greek version. Again, I will let you read it so I don't have to pronounce it. Greece, May 1941. And you've got the same basic paint scheme. The yellow has been turned to red. Again, they're not calling it out as a decal, so I think you might have to paint that in somehow. Basically the same paints, basic decals pretty much in the same place. What you get though is this, it's not the trainer yellow, so it's not quite as bright as the trainer yellow. You get this matte yellow, engine cowlings, spinner tips and tail flaps. which just adds a little bit of colour. I quite like that scheme, probably the one I'm going to do. Then we have a nice single A4 drawing page with our stencil positions on. I do like the way that Airfix do this, and it does show us that we've got decals for those little strips. So what is interesting is it's telling us that we should use decal 25, but we had two different paint schemes with two different colours. So we'll check that when we get to the decals in a minute. It may be that they have 25s in yellow and 25s in red, and it'll make sense. But there's quite a few decals going on there, warning triangles and the like. Right, we've got a little list there. I didn't spot that at first. Alternative decals. So 25 is 26. So one will be a red set and one will be a yellow set. Okay, so that all makes sense. We've got some alternative decals here as well. 36 could be 37. So I'm going to assume that the first number is scheme A and the second number is scheme B, although it's not explicit. And decal, it's showing us the decals for the ordnance and the propeller again. So we've got a little bit of duplication, but I don't mind that. Belt and braces, all good. So all in all, plenty of decals to put on. Should look really nice when done. Our decal sheet, it's not a huge sheet, but it is a 172 aircraft. So actually there's quite a few decals there, all in all, for that scale. We've got our dials there for inside the cockpit. Then we've got lots of stencils, the national insignia, and then these red and yellow lines. And that's everything that's common. So you're putting all of that on either aircraft. Then paint scheme A, you've got this. That's interesting. Paint scheme A. I think they have that wrong. Yeah, they have. Yeah, they've made a mistake. Yeah, so as you look at the decals, they have mixed up paint scheme A and paint scheme B. So where it says A here at the top, that is actually paint scheme B. We can see this eagle clutching a bomb. That goes there, paint scheme B. And you've got the B's there for the under the wing. So yeah, they've definitely got it the wrong way around. And then paint scheme B is the actual paint scheme A. So a couple of things we need to look out for in the instructions that have been not quite right. But it's a minor thing, and you are going to work it out because it's not going to make sense when you come and look at it. But the decals themselves, the cartograph, they're the best you can get in my honest opinion, and they're really good. Really nice decal sheet. So we'll just put our loose bit of tissue back on, and then that can float around the box later. Right then, time to look at some plastic. I need to sharpen my blade, is what I need to be doing. Okay, so we have clear parts in a separate bag, as is always the case, and that's heat sealed as well, so it can't accidentally come out. And then we've got in total 4 sprue, all of the same size, to do our plastic. And I can see there's quite a bit of release agent on them. Look how shiny that is. That's making my finger greasy. So do follow the instructions and give these a good wash. Okay, so this is frame A, and we've got the 2 fuselage halves as the main part on there, and then we've got engine parts and some of the landing gear doors and a couple of tail bits as well. And we are in our new Airfix hard plastic, which is nice. What we've not got on this sprue, and that's probably because it's an older kit that's been re-released, is we don't have the recycling logo on and information on the sprue. so probably we can't recycle this one. Recycle companies won't take it if they don't know what it is. So yeah. Okay, so let's have a look. As I look at the fuselage, we've got some nice panel lines on there. It's nice and crisply moulded. I can't see any sink, so that's always good. It's got quite a matte texture to it as well. Yeah, they're very nice, and I wouldn't say that the panels were overdone in any way. But we can see plenty of release agent on there. There is a little bit of sink there, but you're not going to see that, surely. As we have a look on the inside, I've got an ejector pin there, so if it's visible from the inside, there's a little bit of cleanup, but it's raised, so that's nice and easy. A little chisel will get rid of that. We've got a small ejector pin just here on the corner, which will be a little bit trickier to bring out, but should just sand out. A couple of ejector pins there, but I think they get covered up. And the same with the ejector pins here at the back. I think the bulkhead goes over them, but because it's raised, you might have to take it out just to make sure you've got a good fit. We've got some nice little raised detail for the inside of the bomb area and the cockpit. We've even got a little moulded in unit of some type. And then we've got some cable runs and bits and pieces on this side. So it's quite nicely detailed. Because it's an older kit, it's slightly more soft moulded than we'd possibly like, but under paint that's going to look perfectly fine. You're never going to know that it's not as crisp as it could be or is these days. Yeah, and I think that's going to be my same comment throughout. You can see all this detail here, and it just disappears a little bit under the finger. It's not quite crisp, but it's there and it's lovely, and under paint and a bit of dry brush and a wash, that'll really stand out. It'll look really nice. We've got panel detail, rivet detail. Panel lines aren't overdone, I don't think. That's our landing gear doors, so you might want to scribe that and make that a little bit deeper, possibly, just for authenticity. Otherwise, I think that's lovely, nothing wrong with that. Some really nice detail on those bulkheads. You just pause the video and study those parts as you like. Frame B, and we've got the upper wing, which includes the fuselage, so that's really nicely done. You can see all that panel detail there, and again it's got a bit of a matte finish, and then we've got more of the engine parts. There's a bit of seam around there, but they're not too bad at all. I think they actually looked a little better in the instructions than they do in real life, but painted up and dry brushed and what have you will look good. Then we've got our two different options there for whether we've got the flaps up or down. Cowling, optional pilot seats. So they are quite different, but why, I don't know. And then we've got this. I do like the texture they put in there of the sort of the cross hatch webbing for the seat base. That's nice. Tyre tread's a bit softly moulded, but again, with a wash, that'll crispen that up. The exhausts are nice. They've got slightly hollowed out ends, so you could drill them out a bit further if you wish, or just leave them as they are. They're perfectly fine. And then we've got some smaller parts, not sure what all of them are. That's that brace we saw, part of the tail plane, And the landing gear, that's very finely moulded, nice and thin. Some care needed to remove that. And then our engine cowlings, they're really nice as well. Ow, that's sharp, that bit there. Okay, flipping it over, we've got some internal detail. Got 4 ejector pin marks to clean up. Really light, shouldn't be a problem. No ejector pin marks in the flaps, which is good. They would be harder to clean up. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. So there's our internal details there. See the back of the engines and the seats there. Landing gear. And if we flip it over, you can see the detail on the engine cowls. All seems nice and crisp. There's no flash, bit of seam here and there, and a little bit soft moulded in places, but all in all, I think it looks really nice. Okay, frame C, and we've got the lower part of the wings there with the bay for the landing gear, which has got some nice detail on. I'm sure it's a simplified version, but looks okay to me. And we've got various flaps, the engine cowlings, bomb bay doors, closed and open. And then we've got some of these interior parts that are done in the first few steps. And now I look at them, actually, all that detail that you can see, a lot of it just looks like ammunition for the machine guns. Do you see what I mean? They're all the same shape, so I think that's probably what it is. That's quite a nice touch, actually. And then we've got some more of the interior. So we've got various little electrical boxes and things, no doubt with switches and flashy lights that meant something to someone. And then we flip it over. We've got a bit of interior detail on the engine nacelles and some ejector pin marks. These ones are sunk, so shouldn't be too difficult to have a Mr. Surfacer. Got ejector pin marks, it doesn't matter on the closed one, but on the open one we have, so a little bit of sand in there. Otherwise, all good. There's some nice level of detail on the bombs there. We've got little release cables and things moulded in. That's really nice. So let's have a look. Frame D, and we've got lots of ordnance on this, so all of that is the same ordnance. So that'll look quite nice, all painted up and stacked up, ready to drop. So some of the larger ones there, and then our picnic hamper, whatever that may be. We've got the 4 crew, 2 different styles of crew, 2 different poses, and they've all got their right arm missing, which means that you can put them in slightly different poses, which will add to the realism. So I really like that. Not seen them do that on a 1:72 scale before. We've got our flaps, no ejector pin marks, that's all good. Our spinners, bomb racks, bits for the engine, radio loop. Very nicely moulded seat there. That is lovely. Look how thin that is at the back, really nice. Our tail wheel. Now for some reason the Airfix are not the only people that do this, and whether it's just because it was the weight distribution was different, but there tends to not be a flat on a tail wheel. I'm not quite sure why. Then we've got our wing spars and our propellers, and the sprue gates are on the actual propeller blades, which if you follow my channel you'll know I'm not a fan of. And yeah, the cockpit dials, it's a flat board, so you're relying on the decal for any detail there. And we can see the back of our crew there. They've all got their parachutes on. So yeah, that should be fun to do. Everything that we've seen in all of this grey plastic is crisp, is nice and tightly moulded. There's no issues. I haven't seen any sink. The only thing I'll say is that in places it's a little bit soft moulded, but honestly, when you paint it up, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see that. I think the machine guns are a little bit basic, but again, once painted up, should be fine. Not bad at all. Okay, finally, our clear parts, and they are lovely and clear, crystal clear. Really, really nice. Doesn't come across on camera quite as well, but yeah. Level of distortion, yeah, we've got a little, but it's not too bad. Nothing that's going to give us any significant worries, and that's partly because you've got a lot of flat surfaces, which helps, but also it's quite thin, so the thicker it is, the more distortion you tend to get. Distortion through that dome is a little worse, which we'd expect, but otherwise that's all good. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with those. Should be nice and easy to paint. I think trying to find a mask set for this would be advantageous because we've got some complex masking to do otherwise, or complex painting. They should be easy enough to paint though, they're nice and raised. So hand painting might be the way to go with that. There you go. I think that is a nice set of transparencies. So there we have it, Airfix's 2022 release of their Dornier Do17z in 1:72 scale. Comes with two paint options, German and Greek. What are my first impressions? Well, I've seen this kit before, but I have never built it. I've seen it in a couple of shows actually, and when it's built up it looks really nice. Is it Airfix's best kit? No, it isn't. Is it as good as the stuff that they new tooled this year and last year and the year before? No, not quite. Is it a nice kit? Absolutely. It will build up really nice. There's a nice level of detail inside. I think it really helps that you've got all of the crew. So you've got plenty, because there's quite a bit of glass on the front end of this. You've got plenty to catch the eye. It's going to look like it's supposed to look. It's not going to be void in there and not quite look right. So there is plenty of detail in there to give you something to look at. Does it look like a Dornier? Absolutely. Highlights for me, you've got some nice panel lines. They're not overdone. You've got a nice level of ordnance for the bomb bay, so that you can make the bomb bay look very busy. And you've got a really nice set of decals there that are going to add some stencils, which will just bring the thing to life. And two nice paint schemes. Low lights. It's a little bit soft moulded in places. The engine could look a little bit crisper. But it's not really a low light. It's just where Airfix were at the time. They're not there now, but they were there at the time this was originally tooled. All in all, I don't think I have any issues with any of this. There's no major issues with sync and stuff like that, which you can commonly get in a plastic kit. No, I mean, the biggest error is the mistake on the decals where they've got A and B mixed up. But even that's not a biggie, because anyone who comes to start applying the decals is immediately going to spot that issue. So there's no point Airfix spending money rectifying it, because you'll work it out. I think it's a nice kit. It's probably not a weekend job. It's skill level 3 for a reason. There's some small fiddly parts in there, and there's some careful cleanup of seams needed in places because you've got small fiddly parts. Just painting the crew itself is probably a weekend job in and around the rest of your build. But yeah, I think it will look quite nice. So I don't have one of these in my 172 display, but I can do now. Okay, I hope that was useful. You now know what you get in the box. Just take care if you're ordering paints off the Airfix website until such time as they've sorted it out. I'm sure it won't take them long. Check what your paint options are and what paints you need for those options before you do any ordering, and do it that way rather than from the link on the website. Otherwise, you take care, enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.